Hi there, and welcome back to London and the Purdey factory. I'm Tom Nichols, Transformation Manager for James Purdey and Sons, and tonight we're going on our second trip in the journey of best gun making. So tonight we're going to be looking at action making with my very senior action makers, Ian Brunt, who I'll take you down to meet in a second. Really, this is probably the most important part of the gun build. We're going to build the heart of the gun here. You can replace absolutely everything on a Purdey, but you can never replace its action. So hopefully you enjoy, and we'll go off and see Ian now down in the workshop. Hey. So, here we got Ian Brunt, our very senior action filer, many years in the business, and probably one of the best people in the world to tell you how best gun actions are actually made. So what we're going to do this evening is we're going to show you how we take these two parts here and a set of barrels that you would have remembered from the first video that we did, and turn it into a completed action body that is ready to head to the London Proof House for proofing. So I'll hand you over to Ian, and he can take you through the whole process. So.
Right. Cheers, Tom.
Cheers,
right. Well, basically, start with these are the kind of blank action components. This is an over and under action tool, or over and under action. This is how we receive it from the machine shop. As you see, it's quite blocky. There's a lot of kind of square edges. Not what you'd kind of expect from a Purdey. So basically the first thing that I would do, if we kind of go this way, the first job is to put the barrels into the action. I've got various different actions that these are at different stages of production. Generally when we receive them from the barrel filer, the machine downstairs in our machine shop, there's normally between 3 or 4 thou on the side of the steels, which we have to kind of ease off to get them into the action. With a Purdey, everything's bespoke, so no two pairs of barrels are they won't fit in the same action. One kind of action will only fit one pair of barrels. So say the first thing that you do, you get your action. You're going to true up these surfaces. This is called the front slot, and this is the back slot. So the idea is that we kind of clean any kind of machine marks or any kind of marks out of there. We use engineer's slips to try and make them parallel. The idea is also that the front slot is always slightly tapered away from the bottom. So the bottom of the slot, we relieve that, because you don't want the gun, as it goes down, as the action goes into, barrels are going into the action, you don't want it to kind of jam up at the bottom of the slot. So we relieve this kind of section of the front slot. And this is the same for an over and under or a side by side action. The idea is that you get a nicer kind of fit, and plus if there's anything kind of that gets in the bottom of the slot, it won't kind of stop it from going in. Basically, the front slot is the part that does most of the work. That's what kind of holds the barrels in the action. The back slot really is just to kind of support the front steels, just supports the barrels. So what we go for, we need a nice tight fit on the front slot, and just gently kind of taking we call it taking the black, which is a very kind of it's still touching, but a very kind of minimal kind of fit, not too tight. I can show you probably. This is a side action. Again, it's the same kind of principle. You've got front slot, back slot. The front slot does all the work. The back slot, you just want a very light kind of rubbing. So it's kind of, and you notice at this stage, because you can always take material off, but obviously you can't add it. So that at this stage, that's what the kind of fit we would expect. Basically, the action is kind of supporting itself on the barrels. The friction is kind of supporting it, so it won't kind of drop off the barrels. Basically, I'll show you smoke black. I mean, the way we achieve all these fits, we use a device called a smoke black lamp, which is a paraffin lamp, and basically it puts a layer of soot on the two surfaces, and then where those two surfaces touch, it removes some of the smoke back. So the silver shiny kind of parts, you know, that's where you have to kind of ease the material. So I can show you on the side. This is the way we kind of get a gas tight fit as well. So I'm just going to put some smoke black on this. So I'm just going to put a fine layer of soot. If I can probably show you that way.
So that's paraffin in the lamp here.
Yeah, sorry, paraffin lamp. Yeah. And just a fine layer of soot. And then the idea is then close the gun, and you can see these are the high spots. You never want a bearing. These are called the luggers, like some people call them extractors. You never want a bearing on the inside on these extractors because it's a moving part. It doesn't kind of help with pressure, you know, containment. So basically, you want a bearing from the bottom right the way around, quite an even bearing. That's almost perfect.
I'd say it is pretty perfect.
Yeah, not too bad. Quite happy with that. Yeah. The idea as well is that basically the only places where it should bear, obviously, when it's bearing on the crosspin for the hook, you need a bearing. This is called the draw, and this is when we actually fit the barrels into the action. We use the draw to line everything up, so we kind of put a cutter through to cut the crosspin. So that's kind of how that kind of works. And then the only other place it wants to bear is on the face. It never bears. We call this the flats. You need a gap between the flats and the action. Basically, when it goes to proof, it gives the barrel somewhere to go. Yep. You know, when the cartridge goes off, if the barrel wants to kind of go down a little bit, it can. Otherwise, if it's bearing hard on the flats, it takes it away from the face. So that's kind of.
So when you're making the face,
yeah,
where are you easing? We're going into customer mode now.
So
when you're making the face
on
the barrels, so you've initially blacked down.
Yeah.
Where are you filing? What are you looking to file to actually make the?
Basically any of the high spots. So I mean, as I say, this is pretty good face. But say for instance, this was kind of black all around here, and it had kind of it's a shiny bearing here and here. I would take it off that. We call that's the root of the face. So we would ease those kind of bearings. Any bearings that any kind of black areas basically means it's not touching. Okay. So we need to kind of ease the hard spots to bring it down and get it a kind of a good bearing. And that's the kind of, to be honest, that's the basis of all London gun making. That's what we use for metal to metal fits, wood to metal fits. This is the main tool. Yeah,
I will say that smoke black is used in pretty much every application.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, all the way through to finishing. Yeah.
And how long has that been around? 200, 250
forever.
Years maybe?
Yeah, since gun making was begun.
So that's the main tool.
And it is microns thick, so it's not like it's millimetres, it's not like it's half a millimetre, it's not like it's anything, it is microns. Yeah. So the actual bearing you're getting there, you can put a £10 note or a £5 note between,
and you won't be able to, and it won't close.
Yeah, and it won't actually
hold the action off.
Yeah. Even a cigarette paper, really. If you want to
that used to be like a demonstration thing. On the old gun makers used to do that, put like a Rizzler kind of cigarette paper, and you could see light straight through the action. Yeah. So that's
still the same today.
Yeah, exactly.
And all done by hand as well, which is the.
Yeah. So it's very traditional. It's very. But that's one of the reasons why it has to take such a long time, because it's you're kind of refining the joint, and you're refining all the time. You know, it's not just a one-time operation. You have to kind of black the face, ease the bearings, black the face again, ease the bearings, and it just takes time.
That's the life.
Yeah.
That is the life of the gun, and it's also the safety of the gun.
Yeah.
If that's not right, then that's not good.
But using that process, I mean, I don't know if you can see this, but I'll show you just how kind of close a fit you can get. All those fits, all this is just done by smoke black. As I say, you can have a very slight gap under the flats, probably maybe 3-4 thou, and the toes a couple of thou, but that's the only kind of gaps, and you shouldn't really be able to see it with too well with the naked eye.
That can't be achieved any other way. No,
exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Do you want to show us a little bit how you get to that point?
Yes.
Because obviously we've got no, you're fine, absolutely fine. But
because we started off. This is obviously an over and under action. So basically, at the moment, it's just really kind of a square lump of metal with 2 slots. So basically, once we've got the barrels onto the action, we can then kind of start to put some shape into it. We've got gauges for a lot of these things. Which I can't find. Yeah. So if you can imagine this shape around here, at the moment it's just kind of rough machined, but that's the gauge that I'll use to kind of complete the shape. We've all action fighters have all got our own gauges. It's kind of one of the first things you make as an apprentice. So you make your own set of gauges, and everything kind of everybody's gauging is the same. So I can show you some. You have to excuse me. I've got old eyes, so I need some extra glasses sometimes. Basically, if you see this, I'll show you these two. That's obviously how it started. So that's a big square block. This has been kind of rough machined. What we do is you kind of put like a radius cutter. You take a half the width there, to take the radius of that, and that gives you that shape there. We kind of plunge a cutter in to give us a rough kind of shape. Then what I'll do is I'll probably take a bit. I'll show you. I'll take some material off of there. So gunmaking, it's a mixture of big files and precision. You know, sometimes you have to use a big file.
Big files, hammer, and precision.
Yeah. So basically, what I'm doing now, I'm just kind of roughing down the corner of the action. Just trying to get a little bit of shape, just to take some material off, really. So anyway, I kind of keep going, taking material off of it. This other side, I've just kind of got to a little bit more refined. I've taken a little bit more material off of there. I've also just started to file the shape in here. This corresponds, if I can give you, sorry I'm moving around too much. If you can see that shape there, you see that curve? Mm-hmm. That kind of corresponds to there. So on that one, that's obviously finished, but this one I've just started to file that in with just an oval file. So you can see already that things are, although it's still a lot of material on there, it's kind of starting to take shape. So then basically, the next kind of process, a lot of the tools we use are we make ourselves. So these are basically chisels, cold chisels. We make them out of files. And the good thing about making them yourself is you can make it exactly the shape that you need to do the job. So basically I'll chisel an action. You can see it takes quite a long time. Loose. but basically you just use these kind of tools just to kind of start to create the shape. So I have to kind of keep. You keep. The great thing about actually we use like these leg jaws, and the good thing about that is that we can kind of move the action around. It kind of the steel kind of beds into the lead, so you can move it kind of at any position you want, basically.
It really is so tactile.
To be honest, you get a lot of satisfaction out of doing this because you can just see the shape of the gun evolve as you kind of take material off.
It's very organic, isn't it? The way it sort of turns itself with a hammer and chisel into.
And to start off with, it's quite rough. It's quite ready, you know. But it just takes. You just need to refine as you go. Have to make. Sometimes it works loose in the vice. So I'll chisel a little bit off of there. I haven't got, normally I would fit a slave bolt just to hold the action closed, but on this one I haven't actually fitted the bolt, so I'm going to have to just kind of keep closing it. Then once I've kind of got a rough shape there, what I do is I get another type of chisel called a gouge, just one of those. Basically just kind of like got a curve, and the idea is then we go again from this side, and we can kind of just so it's a bit like carving, really. I mean, you're kind of carving in steel. And this shape alone is probably going to take me a day and a half. Just to kind of get to...
There's a lot of material to actually remove from there, especially...
There's a lot of material.
I'll start calling you a steel mason, not a stone mason or a wood carver. Start calling you a steel mason.
But, you know, it's just a question of you keep kind of paring away. And you kind of get an eye for it after a while. You kind of get just a feel for the material. So I'm going to just keep kind of carving this round here. I'll probably also start to carve some of this material out here as well. You just keep going and refining and working, and eventually, you can see it just kind of starting to appear. Obviously, still it's not a very nice shape there at the moment, so that needs to come some material out of there. But that's kind of what you're going to end up with.
It works its way across the whole action as well, so you've also got the bolsters coming around here as well, which are very difficult to match up on both sides. And then so the sides, the back, everything, and the gash as well. Don't forget, let's not forget the gash on the bottom of the action.
I mean, we haven't...
There's not even there, right? I mean,
I mean, it's a lot of work.
It's a phenomenal amount.
Yeah.
Of work. I mean, I think...
Well, this is filed again, so...
I mean, the shaping alone on that has got to be 80 hours, isn't it?
Gosh, yeah, it's there's a lot of work involved.
Yeah. And then there's a mechanical aspect to it as well, which we haven't even touched on yet.
We
haven't even gone there yet.
Look at, as I said, as I kind of said earlier, we've got obviously all these fits are the smoke black. I mean, you can see there the fit on the back steel. Again, that's achieved with smoke black. And I have to say again that basically this pair of barrels will only fit this action. Ever. They won't fit any other action. This obviously this is a side by side, but these if you can imagine, originally this action would have been square like the over and under, and this has all been chiselled on by hand, chiselled and filed. The same with the shapes around there.
Well, that's what makes each one so unique, really.
I've got my original gauge actually that I made when I was long time ago.
Was that before I
And
bought?
this, yeah, probably. Cheers, mate. And this is the gauge that I've used in all of my actions. I worked it out the other week. I think I probably made over 300. I think actions, but
That's phenomenal.
yeah. So basically that's that. And let's have a show.
So it's not just really just the fitting of just the final of the action and everything else. You're also responsible for the striking and the safety work and the lever work and the bolt and everything else. So there is mechanics involved in it as well. So it's not just the chiseling, the filing, the shaping, which is a massive point of skill, obviously. But
I mean, this is again, this was a square block, and we on a side-by-side action we fit like discs where the strikers go, firing pins, and this is all machined. We use a jigger which we kind of cut the holes out to start off with. Then we go on the milling machine, set it up, and we machine that and fit the discs and everything. So that's all kind of part of it. Again, you've got all the kind of all these holes and everything we fit.
side pins,
side
plates, lock work, striking. It goes on, doesn't it? Yeah. Do you want to come over?
This is a lock plate. Again, that's fittable smoke back. That's all part of the actioner's job. And this is a top lever. That's basically how we kind of get it to start with. And so it's quite chunky, a bit kind of rough. We have to kind of smoke black the barrel, this is called the barrel, into the action, and then we kind of fit the lever. That's a fit, and then all this section is all shaped by hand. I haven't got, actually there's a spindle here, this is a spindle. Again, this operates the bolt mechanism. It's like a kind of a cam mechanism. All this is cut out by hand. Even now, it's all the fits, that probably won't go in at the moment, but that's an interference fit, so that's kind of a tight fit. And there should be no play in the lever work, so you shouldn't feel any kind of play. It'll be really tight and smooth. Also, the safety work. This is a thumb piece, safety. Again, filed from a square block, checker by hand, filed up by hand.
So it goes from the big clanging hammer and chisel to the fine checkering. So
that's what I mean. You start off with a big file, big hammer,
and you come right down to the really fine stuff. Yeah, when you come down to the sort of 6-cut files that you're putting the detail on at the very end, it's phenomenal. It's
and each one's got a certain amount of individuality. You know, they're all slightly different. None of them's going to be exactly the same. Also, I'll show you that. That's my initials. I always stamp all my work. So that's my initials. And that's again one of the first things you make as an apprentice. You make your initial stamp.
And it goes back. You see guns now that are 200 years old, and you can trace the craftsmen back that made them by gaslight back in the day. I mean, using the same techniques and using the same way of doing things. So it's it is quite amazing. It's like I said at the very beginning of the video. This is the heart of the gun. You can replace anything, and I know we've shown the locks in this part of the process, which we're going to cover in the next video, locks and triggers in the next video, but you can replace everything, but you can never replace an action bomb. If that ever fails, then...
But, I mean, the actions, you get actions that are over 100 years old, and so
years old.
They kind of they last for a long time. And you look at the I think Purdey, you look at the barrels and the thickness that everything, it's all built to last. You know? People kind of hand these guns down to their family and you know, relatives. So you know.
Yeah. I mean, there are guns that are hundreds of years old but still in everyday use. So it's
we get a lot of stuff in for repair. Like sometimes you get a pair of barrels that's worn out, so the gun will come in for a new pair of barrels, or even the gun that's not worn out So it's just come off the face. So it comes into us. We fit a new cross pin, like that's the cross pin. We can fit a new cross pin and put the gun back on the face. Good for another 20 years or whatever. So
yeah. It is great. It's a pleasure to be part of, really, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of the process, where Ian's actually jointed the gun, all the final shaping's done, everything's happy. So we showed the barrel making process in the last video. So what Ian has actually taken is what the barrel makers have produced and inserted it into the action body. So from this point, it then goes across and it goes to the London Proof House where it gets proofed. And that really is the test of Ian's work more than anybody else's, I guess, and the barrel makers to the same extent, to make sure the gun is going to withstand the forces that it's going to be asked to take on throughout its daily life. It actually has more asked of it at the Proof House than it ever will in its lifetime. So yeah, it's quite a big responsibility, really, isn't it? Making sure that face and everything is on and good to go.
I have to say, I still get a kick out of it. I've always enjoyed the job, and I mean, sometimes it's frustrating because things don't always go perfectly. But you know, you've always got something to aim at, you know, and especially as you go up in the business, you see the craftsmen, the older craftsmen, and you look at the work that they produce, and you think, wow, am I ever going to get to that kind of stage? And you do, as you work through the kind of, as you get older, you work through the process. Your work gets better, it gets cleaner, and it's just, I don't know, I just find it very rewarding, I have to say. I can't imagine a job that I prefer to do, really. But
I think there's very few out there better than you, mate, if any.
Mate.
Yeah,
there's some good gun makers out there.
Some pretty good gun makers. Yeah. Thanks very much, Ian.
That's all right,
really appreciate
no
it.
worries.
And yeah, keep it going.
Okay.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully you'll join us for our next video. As I say, we have jumped around a little bit. It gets a bit confusing because we do need the locks to actually make the action. But in the next video, we're going to be looking at locks and triggers, which will be 3 and 4 in the process, often lumped together, hence why people say 7 areas of gun making rather than 8. But 2 different disciplines, often done by the same person, 2 different disciplines. So in the next video, we'll be looking at locks and triggers. So hopefully you'll join us again then. If you've got any questions that we haven't answered today or haven't had time to answer today, please message us underneath and we'll do our very best to answer those in a timely fashion. But until next time, thank you very much for joining us here in London. Stay safe and see you soon.
Goodbye.